The funding for this video is provided by the amazing members of my Patreon. Also contributions from viewers like you. Thank you. Y'all started from PBS Kids, what you gonna do? Fight me? Anyway, roll the video. This title may be a bit confusing for those who don't quite understand the controversy surrounding Marilyn Monroe as a whole. Plenty know, but plenty don't, so let's go. Marilyn Monroe is someone that everyone knows of, as we see her face plastered everywhere, and some don't even know what she sounds like. I didn't know what she sounded like until I was in high school, and so happened to be watching a movie I had no idea she was in. She was one of Hollywood's first sex symbols, and because of that, there's so much speculation about her life and what the fuck she was up to. Marilyn died at the age of 36, which is young to die. And after her death, we got a plethora of movies about her. For better and for worse, every so often, we are getting something new about this woman. A new movie. A new show, a new person playing her in a scene or whatever, a new shirt with her face on it, a new makeup collection. Oftentimes when notable public figures die, plenty of people try to make a profit off of them, and it's kind of puts a bad taste in my mouth. Please, let those people rest. Yes, we understand that their legacy should live on, but also you're exploiting them more than they already were when they were alive. A documentary and biopic with the person's family involved is fine, but constantly plastering their face on every little last thing you can sell is kinda nasty. I am pretty sure you are aware, but this year there was a movie released about Marilyn Monroe called Blonde. The rating for this film is NC-17, and that rating alone told me that this movie was gonna be a bunch of bullshit. Because so much of what happens with Marilyn in these movies are lies. That's why I do not bother to give any of them the time of day, because it's not worth seeing people continue to exploit this woman for some damn money. So I decided to do some research on the movie I had no intentions on watching. Come to find out that this is based on a book, Blonde, by Joyce Carol Oates, which is a fictionalized retelling of Marilyn Monroe's life. Baby, this is fan fiction. This is literally like those fan fictions written on Wattpad about celebrities that me and my friends used to read when we were teenagers. But it's kind of jarring because it has a budget of $22 billion behind it and directed by a man who worked with Brad Pitt. That being said, Blonde is a movie that shouldn't have been made based on a book that shouldn't have been written. The book could have still been created, but why the fuck didn't you just create an original character? You could have gone the full-on historical fiction route and you just changed the names of everyone in the story. But anyways, yeah. Does anyone remember when Disney did the exact same thing to an indigenous woman? I'm gonna be completely honest here. I loved the movie Pocahontas growing up. I loved it because it was a film about an indigenous woman with beautiful art, amazing music, and the film's ending made me ugly cry so much that it made no damn sense. Last time I watched this movie, I was about 18 years old and cried so hard that I knew it was time for me to put this film to rest and no longer watch it. Also, I really appreciate that Pocahontas was voiced by a Native American woman. During one of my classes in college, my film professor spoke about how even though Pocahontas looks amazing and has great music, it's an issue with filmmaking. I personally never thought it was a problem with the movie because I was like, well, this is a Disney retelling of her story, so it's fine. And that was very ignorant of me to think because I enjoyed the movie so much. I did not want to look into the problems that it really had, nor did I want to do this research to know the true story. The point my professor made that got me to stop liking the film was, this was a real person who was brutalized, and Disney decided to make up things about her and romanticize her pain. It's wrong. And from that point forward, I fully understand why people refuse to watch this movie, and I no longer care about it. If Disney wanted to make a movie about the life of Pocahontas and the colonization of now known as North America, they should have told her true story. We will be back after a brief commercial break. Hi everyone, the captain here. I just wanted to get on here real quick and tell you guys thank you so much for your support. I have gotten so much fan art from you guys, and I've met plenty of y'all in person at the conventions that I have been at. And also thank you guys so much for coming to the panels that I host. It means so much to me. You guys are so great. I appreciate every little last bit of support you guys give me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can say thank you 100 times, but I truly do mean it. Thank you. Let's take After, for example, when in comparison to this. When you erase that this is fanfiction on One Direction, it's still a bad story. When you erase that this is fanfiction on Pocahontas, it's pretty decent storytelling wise. But this is something where you cannot erase the factor because this movie has affected the way so many people view her. People think that this is her real story because they didn't bother to go and do their damn research, let alone how her story stopped being taught in schools. So many people learned who she was because of this movie. That's not a good look when so much of what happened in her life in this film is fake as hell. People think that's what she really looked like, and no. People think that she was 18 when the colonization happened, and no. People think the relationship she had with John Smith was romantic, and it's completely false. Find it utterly distasteful that Disney would portray the dynamic between the two inaccurately. Like Marilyn Monroe, Pocahontas has numerous film adaptations about her, but Disney is the one most people know about, thus making it the most popular. And I'm gonna be completely honest, I have seen a few of the others at school and they are fucking terrible. Like a lot of those Marilyn Monroe movies made before Blonde. I understand that creatives do not go in with the intentions of making something bad, most of the time. But also, these are not folktale characters in the public domain. Pocahontas and Marilyn Monroe are not Cinderella. They are all people who everyone knows about, but Cinderella doesn't exist. But the other two do. We can keep remixing Cinderella how we want because the possibilities are endless with what you can do with her story. But this does not apply to Marilyn Monroe and Pocahontas. Both of these women are ones who were brutalized and sadly did not have a happy ending the way Cinderella did. That alone is why we shouldn't continue to make entertainment where people lie about them for the sake of other people's amusement. 1. No one needs to have numerous biopics on them. And 2. No one needs a movie that's full of false claims about them either. Hey, so I do have a little bit more insight that I would like to give on this subject right here, but my SD card is currently rendering in my computer right now in my editing software, and I was like, yeah, just go ahead and record this little bit on your phone. But I did mention in this video how even though we have like so much Marilyn Monroe like media, like things to watch, books written about her and all of that jazz. And the same thing goes for Pocahontas too, where we have so many movies about her and then so many books about her that like fictionalized her life and are completely false. They're just basically fan fictions. I also wanted to bring up how like Disney just kind of sells this false identity and idea of Pocahontas like everybody else in Hollywood does with Marilyn Monroe. And from my knowledge, I've never really seen like Disney profit off of Marilyn Monroe. I'm pretty sure they have. Like, yeah, with Abbott Elementary, I remember Janine wore Marilyn Monroe's costume for like, you know, Halloween. And I'm not sure if there's other Disney properties like that where characters dress up as Marilyn Monroe. That right there is not really an issue because they're just dressing up as a celebrity for a costume or cosplay or whatever. That's normal. People do that. Not an issue right there. But then also I had to think about other ways that Disney has profited off of Pocahontas beyond this movie and beyond, because you know they ended up making a sequel to this movie, and I was like, it's bad enough that you made the first one and then you made another one which was even more fake than the first one, because I was like, wait a damn minute, there was no fighting over Pocahontas with John Smith and John Rowe. What the hell is that? Okay, that aspect of the movie was just like, huh? And then if I separate it from, you know, the real life story, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of bad. But like, knowing that this is just Pocahontas fan fiction that Disney did again, that was probably like 7 years later after the first one came out, it's very much nasty. It leaves a really bad taste in my mouth. And then I remember when I was really little, at my, you know, where was I? School. I was in school, and we used to have like a dress up area because y'all know when it would be playtime. And I remember there would be like this one outfit, like we had different costumes, and then we had like different Disney princess dresses. And one dress in particular was a Pocahontas dress, and I remember that I put it on and was just like running around with it with the rest of my other classmates and whatever. But I didn't understand why it was wrong at that time period, but now that I do, but there's another reason why I understand that it's wrong, because one, that was cultural appropriation. I was a little girl, I didn't know that, and Disney was over here selling costumes about it anyway, so they're at fault just as well. But also, I was like, wait a minute, they're profiting off of Pocahontas. Like how they do with Marilyn Monroe, they're profiting off of her. They're selling her. They're literally selling her. And I know Yara Zaid, yes, she posted a really good video about selling Marilyn, and I will have the link to that down below, and she goes way more into detail about what's going on with Marilyn. But here I'm just gonna go on about how Disney did the exact same thing with Pocahontas, but it low-key just kind of doesn't get talked about much. And I low-key don't want to bring the subject of race into this, but I do feel like that is part of the reason why Marilyn Monroe gets talked about so much, with the way Hollywood and just the media in general and all these companies exploit her for the sake of their gain. But nobody really kind of wants to bring up, well, a lot of people don't tend to bring up how Disney did the exact same thing to an indigenous woman. Because all this money that they have made off of Marilyn Monroe, I'm pretty sure people have made more money off of her than Marilyn Monroe made herself when she was alive. I kid you not, they are not giving any of that money to her family or her bloodline or anything like that. It's just people continuing to exploit her for their personal gain. Like I said, y'all will do anything for some damn money. But Disney also does the exact same thing too, because I kid you not, they didn't even bother to try to look up who Pocahontas' bloodline was and try to donate the money to them for every little thing they make for profit and what the fuck not. And it is a bit gross, I'd say, because when you look at the Disney princess lineup, Pocahontas is the one that kind of has like the least amount of merchandise. And I remember a lot of the Disney princesses of a color have least amount of merchandise just as well. But then also to think about it, Pocahontas really shouldn't have merchandise at all. Like, I've seen the merchandise. She has necklaces, she has posters, she has dolls, like super duper cute dolls, but I personally just don't feel comfortable purchasing them because I was like, this is a real person that Disney decided to fuck up her story, and now so many people won't even bother to learn her real story because they're so keen on the fact that the Disney version of it is accurate to her life, and it absolutely fucking wasn't. When it comes to the subject of the exploitation of Pocahontas, it just kind of hurts to see that nobody really wants to speak about it much. Because anytime I see people talk about the exploitation of famous women who are now dead, usually it's almost always Marilyn Monroe or Gia Carnegie, I hope I pronounced her name, or a whole bunch of other dead white women that we see plastered everywhere, but a lot of people have never seen their movies. Because Audrey Hepburn is another one that comes to mind just as well. Thinking of Jane Harlow and Grace Kelly and all of these old Hollywood starlights that are, you know, you guessed it, white women. We don't really see people talk about the exploitation of women of color when it comes to the We don't really see people talk about the exploitation of women of color when it comes to popular media. And Disney is one of the people I personally think did it the worst, because Pocahontas gets dragged all the time, okay? I'm glad that this movie gets dragged because, like I said, when I was younger, there was a part of me that didn't want to own up to this movie, own up to the fact that this movie was bad. But when I actually listened to my teacher, like, you know, shut up and listen. And by the way, my teacher was a white woman. Love her. Great. I learned so much about film from her. After I shut up and listened to her, I did go and do my own research, and I looked up and saw how completely wrong, because I always knew the story wasn't completely accurate, but when I realized how disgustingly inaccurate it was, I realized, yeah, this is a film that should not have been made in the first place. There's not an issue with Disney wanting to make a movie about an indigenous woman, because these are stories that we do need to get told, because when it comes to indigenous representation within Hollywood, it is very much lacking, and oftentimes when we do get it, it is very much poor, because I will blame Disney's at fault for this, because Disney is partnered with Miraculous Ladybug and I don't care. But a lot of people know me and how deep I feel about the Miraculous New York special, and it premiered on Disney Channel first, so yeah, happy Disney December. But there was this indigenous girl in it named Jessica, and I love Jessica, but that New York special was literally just like a whole hour of Jessica being brutalized, and it was really bad. It was just white people screaming at her. The girl was in distress, and I was like, it's disgusting how this is one of the few properties that we have gotten a new indigenous character in. It is in one of the most popular shows in the world, because even though Miraculous Ladybug is one of the most popular cartoons in the world, no, overall it is still one of the most popular shows when you see how much revenue it makes, how much viewership it gets. And for y'all to have this horrible ass portrayal of an indigenous girl, a marginalized group of people that don't get that much representation to begin with, let alone good representation, and you literally just have the girl in pain the entire time. I'm not talking about Miraculous for the rest of this year on my channel simply because I just want to focus on Disney December, but I felt like it was right to speak about that because it kind of correlates with what's going on with Pocahontas, because it was wrong as hell with them for them to make this movie. Like, no, you should have made it accurate to her story. Hey, my sister just walked in. I personally think if Disney wanted to do indigenous people justice, they should have told an original story instead of this one. But I also feel like part of the reason why they decided to make Pocahontas in the first place is because they saw other people were doing it. It was a thing to tell her story. And also, I know back in the 90s, you know, when a lot of people really didn't have, like, Technology is not like how it is today. Media is not how it is today. A lot of people didn't go and sit and do their research and learn why a lot of things were right and wrong. Within the 90s, this is just kind of how a lot of people got their history information through biopics and of the sorts. And so many biopics that I remember that I have watched from the 90s, and I wouldn't really say biopics, but like, you know, documentaries and all of that stuff. A lot of that shit is inaccurate, and that is the reason why so much of it is getting remade today. Because I remember, I kid you not, when I was in the middle of doing this research for this Pocahontas video, apparently they're going to be making a live action Pocahontas. Let this woman rest. We don't need another one because y'all already did it once. You fucked up there. You did it twice and then you fucked up there again. Just leave her alone. Let this woman rest. And like I said, like, y'all are kind of like low-key to laugh. I get so scared when it comes to Hollywood and Disney, because y'all are part of that, when it comes to the subject of touching indigenous people, because I'm just like, can we not fuck up their story any more than it already is? So much of the representation that they have is rooted in really bad stereotypes. If you want to see an indigenous woman actually portrayed well, go watch Wendell and Wild. She was only in that movie for like 5 minutes, but she was great. We love her. We adore her. Jessica, I love Jessica, but like, Miraculous did her so dirty. Actual indigenous woman needs to be writing for her character if they want to bring her back into the story. In Disney, Pocahontas is the last movie that y'all need to be given a remake to. And if you're gonna give Pocahontas a remake, you need to tell her story correctly. But I low-key feel like they didn't want to tell her story correctly because they would have thought it was boring. Well, sometimes boring is what you need. Sometimes boring is what you need when it needs to deal with telling someone's story correctly. Sometimes a lot of people don't have a lot of crazy lives and shit like that. Okay, we get it. But then also, Pocahontas' story isn't boring to begin with because there is so much darkness and sadness that went into this woman's life because she didn't live to be no older than 21. Pocahontas' story is something that needs to be told correctly. And it's sad that this version, this movie, is the one everyone knows about. Disney gave Pocahontas the Marilyn Monroe treatment, and it's unacceptable, and we need to start talking about it more. 'Cause I work hard to get to this point in my life. I'm blowing up, so don't hate, just congratulate.
Powerpuff Girls will just blow your mind. Buttercup like villains 3 at a time. Bubbles will smile while kicking your butt, and Blossom will lead them out of their rut. Cherish and Powerpuff, 2 of a kind. Both wanna save the world before bedtime. From Townsville, Memphis, New York to LA, the Powerpuff Girls are just here to stay.